I think we're going to maybe take a few questions. I'm going to take advantage of my position and ask mine first. Sorry. What sort of challenges were you faced with culturally for people to adopt the use of the tool? Was there any, and how did you deal with those?
I would describe it as enormous, actually.
Yeah.
The challenges are enormous. This is one of the situations in which you have within an organization hundreds of stakeholders, and each one obviously having a component of that. Think about, for instance, consultant rosters. We have several of them. And the consultant roster are very often outdated, or they don't reflect information. Here we say it's up to the individual to. So again, the cultural change is you being an email address or you being an actual person. And obviously, everything that goes with that is quite significant. But we're looking at the long-term picture, where we want to be 5 years from now. And that, I think, is the perspective that is.
Thank you. I think we have a question here in front. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Miriam Desable, and I'm from ECA. And I'm sure you know probably half of the questions I'm going to ask you, because I know that you've been in touch with our colleagues at the knowledge management at ECA. I have a zillion questions for you. First of all, how did you? I will in the same line as what Steve just asked. How did you get the program manager to buy into the knowledge management platform? What we confront very often is they find it an absolutely wonderful tool until the time to come and contribute, write, update, etc., and then everybody's too busy. So how did you manage to make them feel that it is part of their work and actually they're gaining from this rather than an additional thing? That's number one. Number two, what is the structure, the human resources structure that you have adopted to actually manage the, I would say, the first page, the homepage of the platform? Who updates it? Do you have a centralized? I know that once the communities of practice and the discussions and the groups, I don't remember how you call them, the thematic, are there. They're self-managed, but the overall platform, who manages it? Is it each division, or do you have a centralized team? And if you do have a centralized team, how many people do you have? And then last, have you opened up? I understand that you have UNDP people, you have consultants, etc. But have you opened up to other UN agencies? Do you plan to? We have right now a multitude of knowledge management initiatives in the UN system. I remember not long ago, IFAD started a very important one on very specific issues. We have one at ACA, you have one. And these platforms don't talk to each other. So, how do we address that? Because until now, we still have a duplication of efforts and a duplication of information. And you were talking about tagging. Sorry, that's it. That's the last one, I promise.
That's three.
How do you catalog and how do you do cataloging and indexing and cross-referencing? Sorry about all this. Thank you.
On the first question, as far as managers are concerned, the important thing is where we're sitting on a project cycle. Right now, our project cycle starts with management and then goes into finance, resources, and concludes with monitoring and evaluation. What this inserts itself into the preparation of projects. So this is all the intelligence somehow that you got. Again, this is for the client-facing stuff. So these are the people that are actually there responding to a government request. But if you think about it, the number of duplication that we have on basically rewriting the same thing, because we really don't know what we have done somewhere else, is huge. So it's a very clear niche. Where we're sitting here is the preparation of whatever then becomes project or program, whatever it happens to be. And for the program manager component, obviously what you get is that at the end, when you have formulated the project, your responsibility are going right into your second question, whose responsibility is to do things. The responsibility is straight on the individual. Who manages Facebook and whose responsibility is to update your profile? Well, it's yours. Nobody's going to tell you to do it or not, but if you don't, you're not going to be there. and your contributions are not going to be evident and open to the rest of the organization. So here the responsibility goes with those that are responsible for a specific area. If it's a project manager, it will be to basically put the information there for that particular project, but it's distributed across a much larger number of people, so the actual time compared to what you extract from the system, which is now to know that if you're looking for a specific project document, there is another 4 out there that you can look at and understand what, or reach the person that has been part of that universe is quite important. In terms of UN, wider participation, we are looking at open standards here. So we're not, what we don't want to do is to use proprietary technologies that then are close to the fact that we can connect and we can somehow throw a link between us. And obviously we have received interest from other organizations. We have, I see my colleagues from UNFPA here, and we are moving in the direction that eventually may allow others to become owners of a space within the system, unrelated to what we do. But we're not promoting this as any larger platform at this point, because that's not really what we're doing until we have a system in our hands that could do that kind of things. The last component is on tagging and indexing. The difference between 1.0 and 2.0 concept is that you move away from a structure of the codification component of things, so to speak, and you move into tagging, which is your user-based preference. And the collective amount of user preferences in a specific item, flagging a document, or is what really makes the structure for future searches or a matter. So it's a very robust way of doing things, much like anything else, because you're now distributing the role of participating and improving the system to the constituency that you have in it.
Great, thanks. Maybe one more quick question. Sorry, I think Lisa. Yeah.
My name is Swayat Summers. Hi, my name is Swayat Summers. I'm the chief of the English website with the Department of Public Information. I think this is really invaluable. I mean, the teamwork program, and I think what you've done with it is wonderful, and I'm sure we will all look at it. You've answered actually my first question. That's why I only have one question about the multilingual support. But where do you feature? Where would you see that on the site to know that this site exists in other languages, so that I can, let's say I speak only Chinese and I would like to know what the Teamworks is all about. Where does that feature on the site? And then the other question is this site accessible for the disabled? This is so invaluable for the disabled. Yeah. How can they reach it, and is it really accessible? Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, the second question is on accessibility by whom, because let me for a second say where this sits in our corporate architecture. This is an extranet, so it's not public. It's accessible because you can be registered in, or you can authenticate in if you're part of the organizations or partners. But it's still in a protected space. In other words, you cannot go in and see everything. That's our internet component of things. Our extranet sits somewhat inside UNDP for us with what we do, and also extend to some of our partners in government, etc., but still requires some degree of registration. Why do you want that? Because you also want to foster a dialogue which is not public. It's somehow protected, but it's external to us as well if needs to be. Okay. Remind me what the first. The multilingual. What we're looking into right now, we're going to start with English, of course, because that's important. But the functional specification require that we would be able to use a different level, not also as the language of the text, but also searches, etc., more than one language. What we're looking right now is obviously French and Spanish as the first two, but we've seen machine translation demonstrated for Chinese, given the example that you made, that is very effective. So eventually, I don't see why this could not. And the cost of doing that, by the way, in terms of translation, I think is good enough to justify how you integrate this in the system, rather than obviously hiring a translator for everything you're doing.
Great, thank you very much. I'm sorry, we're running way behind, so I think we're going to have to move on. But thank you for that interesting presentation. I think this is one of the tools we're really doing a lot. Thank you.